It's only been 5 months since the launch of Throne and Liberty, and we're already getting the latest and biggest expansion for the game. That expansion is called the Wilds of Talandre. We're going to be talking about what you can expect to see with the new Talandre expansion and provide you with a little bit of additional guidance. This video is sponsored by Amazon Games. Shoutouts to them for supporting me with this to share the Talandre info. Also, I plan on going pretty hard for the Talandre launch, so definitely be sure to come hang out with me on Twitch. I'm going to be streaming pretty much every day, all day. Let's dive into this. Let's begin with explaining what Talandre is. Talandre is a large new region located north of Laslan and Stoneguard, almost doubling the size of the world in Throne and Liberty. And, well, I hope you're ready for this because there is a lot coming in this expansion. The Talandre region will consist of 1 new town, 6 new major zones, 3 new open world dungeons, 4 new world bosses, and 2 new arc bosses. And that's just the region itself. Here's what we're getting content-wise in a nutshell. A new level cap extension, new tier 2 gear, 5 new instance 3-star dungeons, 2 new character progression systems, a brand new 24/7 PvP zone called Nebula Island, and solo dungeons, including 4 bosses. First, let's talk about the new level cap. The new level cap will increase from level 50 to level 55. This can be easily done within 4 to 5 hours by just leveling through the new main story campaign that can be found under your adventure codex. Expect to see some pretty nice rewards for completing the MSQ main story quest, including some starter tier 2 gear that's definitely worth holding on to. We'll be touching more on this later, but do expect to see some new tier 2 starter gear that will be plenty strong enough to dive right into the Talandre content. Speaking of gear, Talandre is also dropping a ton of new tier 2 gear that will certainly open up the build variety from tier 1. A huge selling point for me personally with Throne has always been the emphasis this game places on unique builds and how there is no one universal build that beats them all. It's very much a pick your poison, pick your strength like system, which is kind of rare to come around these days for MMOs. In tier 2, the gearing gets even more expansive and will have you feeling like your class is just more complete. Tier 2 gear can be obtained in similar fashion to how you got your tier 1 gear, with dungeons, open world dungeons, and world bosses playing a large role in your acquisition. With Talandre, you can add Nebula Island to that list, as well as a new revamped weekly mission, which includes PvP activities, by the way, giving players even more content optionality when progressing their character. 5 new 3-star dungeons will be released within the first 2 weeks of the Talandre launch. 3 of them coming on the 6th, and 2 more coming a week later. These dungeons will play a large role in how you gear your character. The pre-existing 1-star and 2-star dungeon tokens that you received will be consolidated to use the same contract token 1 currency to open the chest reward at the end, while the 3-star dungeons will now consume the contract token 2 currency. This means for those of you who are currently playing on global, if you save your contract token 2 currency, which is currently being consumed by your 2-star dungeons, you can use them for your 3-star dungeons when Talandre drops. More on dungeons and consolidation. Another major quality of life and system improvement change coming to Talandre are the new consolidated gear crafting tokens. Rather than Abyss and Co-op dungeons all having their own tokens, with Talandre there will now be only tier 1 tokens and tier 2 tokens, which correspond to the tier of gear you can craft with them. These tokens will now be obtained from open world Abyss dungeons, co-op dungeons, arena, and the new weekly mission system. Keep in mind your existing dimensional soul shard tokens will automatically be converted to the new tier 1 tokens when Talandre releases. Next, we have 2 new progression systems coming: artifacts and a new weapon mastery system. We're not going to dive too deep into these systems in this video, but definitely keep an eye out on the official global Throne site for a deeper dive. Artifacts are essentially additional gear pieces you equip that will give you some additional stats and bonuses when equipped in a set. The new weapon mastery system resembles something more in line with ARPGs, where you'll have a list of nodes you'll be able to choose from, offering you more power and opening up even more build variety. Keep in mind, this new mastery tree will require a one-time unlock fee, costing you gems, rubrics, Stalin, Emirate, and Marins, as well as Solent. Speaking of materials, gear will require the same mats and will require a lot of purple growth stones. If you're stocking up on these early, you'll be farming rubrics, Stalins, and Emirates, but you'll also have to stock up on precious polished crystals and magic powder, as these will also be required to craft the growth stones. The best way to easily farm precious polished crystals is by completing your dungeons and daily contracts. If you've exhausted all your dailies, the best way to continue farming them on your own is by soloing the first mini-boss in the 1-star dungeon Tyrant Isle. This will require a bit of gear, but it's hands down the most efficient way to farm more of these crystals. The best way to farm magic powder is to simply dissolve the gear pieces you obtain, usually coming from your dungeon in your open world dungeon grind. If you do this, be sure to not dissolve these pieces of gear individually. You want to smash any you can together and trade each piece out before dissolving. When you dissolve a regular base piece, you'll get 10 powder, meaning if you dissolve 2 pieces of gear that are base, you'll only get 20 powder. If you were to smash these 2 together and dissolve 1 piece instead, you'll get 35 powder, 15 more powder than dissolving them separately. Be sure to smash as many together as you can before dissolving them for powder. Next, let's talk about the 3 new open world dungeons that will be available in Talandre. These open world dungeons will consume the same abyssal contract tokens, so be sure to load up on those for better loot in the new areas. Weekly resistance contracts for Laslan and Stoneguard open world dungeons can also be dissolved and crafted into Talandre resistance contracts at an additional cost. These contracts will give you an upgraded pouch which has more tier 2 gear on its loot table. Keyword being more, meaning the pouches you get from Laslan Stoneguard open world dungeons will also have some tier 2 gear pieces on its loot table, but not as much. Contract coins from your daily contracts can also now be spent on tier 2 weapon selection chests, so loading up on these can afford you a day 1 weapon at the cost of 3,000 coins. Keep in mind, however, this chest only contains tier 2 weapons that are from 2-star dungeons. You will not be able to obtain a tier 2 weapon from a 3-star dungeon via this chest. A lot of you guys have already been pre-farming a lot of these mats to get ahead of the curve, and while that may definitely give you a head start, Talandre content will be released via milestones, meaning not everything is releasing day 1 and you will not be able to get everything day 1. There will be a milestone system in place similar to what we had at the launch of our game, where new events and bosses will be unlocked over a period of time. This will be roughly about a 3-week period for us to unlock all the milestones, with the tier 2 arc bosses being at the end of it. I know what you're thinking. Holy crap, I'm gonna be busy as hell in March. That is a lot of content. Well, here's another for you. Nebula Island, the 24/7 PvP zone, is also expected to drop March 13th, 1 week after the start of the expansion. If you're wondering what this is, think of it as a large open world area where players can farm really strong mobs with world bosses spawning for incredible loot. And the whole island, with the exception of one Peace Zone, is 24/7 PvP. The island is up 24/7. However, for players, there is a 5-hour weekly time limit. For those of you disappointed in hearing that, know that there are ways to increase that cap, giving you well beyond that. Okay, so let's just back this thing up a bit. I know that was a lot, but a lot of content dropping is good. Let me simplify what you'll be doing on a day-to-day basis. When Talandre drops, the day-to-day will be still relatively the same. Do your daily contracts and dungeons, then burn the abyssal contract tokens you get from them in the open world dungeons in Talandre. The big gear upgrades will come from your daily dungeons and open world dungeon grind. Pretty simple. When it comes to that grind, by the way, in 1-star dungeons, you'll be able to open 3 chests per run, with 2-star dungeons giving you the option to open 2 chests per run, so you can burn through your daily tokens significantly faster. Oh, and one last thing on dungeons. Most of you who have been playing this game have probably already heard about the solo dungeons that are coming to Korea soon. Well, you can expect that content to also be released with us here globally the same week. We will be getting 4 of the first 8 bosses with Talandre, and these dungeons can reward you with some great rewards, including base tier 2 weapons. These solo dungeons should provide you an opportunity to learn important mechanics to know in group play, but also serve as non-sweaty content for those who just want to relax and play solo. Lastly, if you're a new player or someone who is thinking about returning to the game to check out the expansion, now would be the best time to do so. Tier 2 means there is essentially a reset in gear, so even if you don't have maxed out tier 1 gear, that's okay, because everyone needs to farm new tier 2 pieces and build it up from scratch again anyway. AGS is implementing huge new player returning player buffs and rewards to further help catch players up. This includes getting an entry tier 2 gear loadout just from completing the MSQ from the Adventure Codex. They're also releasing new tier 2 blue gear, which is going to be on par with tier 1 purple, only with less traits that can be attached to them that should also aid in catching up. So is Talandre worth checking out? Well, first off, the game is free, and so is the expansion. If you've enjoyed Throne before, we're actually getting the latest content in Throne and Liberty in its full glory. This is probably one of the easiest MMOs to come back to or catch up on if you're starting late or took a break. And with everything we're getting with the Talandre expansion, it'll be especially easy to catch up. Up until now, we've always had an older version of Throne in global, and for me, the launch was for sure fun, but as someone who's already experienced the content in tier 2, being stuck in tier 1, if I'm gonna be real, has been a little bit boring for me. On March 6th, we pretty much get the latest, most current version of Throne with Talandre, which is pretty exciting because it may be the same game, but it's certainly a better version, and there's a lot of fresh new things to look forward to. The big one for me being the new combat and targeting changes that's coming with Talandre. If you've played Throne before, you know what I'm talking about. Let's be completely honest here. The targeting was pretty bad, and there were way too many issues with combat, ranging from inertia issues to just flat out clunkiness. AGS has worked with NC to implement major changes to this area, and it's just better. The other massive change that I'm looking forward to is the restructuring of conflict bosses, otherwise known as the open world boss PvP in Throne and Liberty. Zerging has always been a huge problem and a major turnoff for a lot of players and virtually everyone in a non-hardcore guild. This too has been changed with the Talandre expansion. Now you'll have 3 portals that spawn: Peace, Dominion, and Guild. All 3 portals will have 96 player caps. Peace will remain PvE and preformed parties can stay together. The new Dominion portal allows players to party up or go solo and be match made into one of 2 teams that will duke it out for the boss loot. Finally, the Guild portal will match guilds for 1v1 battles with 36 to 48 players per guild. There will be a matchmaking system that pairs guilds based on performance data and number of players they entered the portal with. Overall, a much better system. New dungeons are better, gearing is better, the new zones look better, the new mastery system is better, a 24/7 PvP island. This on top of the fact that combat and targeting is being addressed. Post Talandre Throne looking pretty good right now. Personally, I'm planning on going pretty hard, so yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. One last thing, do me a favor guys, tell me in the comments section below what part of the Talandre expansion you guys are looking forward to the most. I really want to see what areas of the expansion you guys are excited about. Also, before ending the video, be sure to sign up for Amazon Games ID to receive some exclusive bonus Throne rewards, as well as other games on Amazon's platform. I'll see you guys in the next video.